Airport security called FBI on suspicious black woman, until FBI agents walked in and saluted her. The whistle of justice. Commander, you're under arrest. For war crimes. The words hit like a gunshot in the silent war room. The hum of screens froze. Every officer in the briefing hall turned toward the woman in the center, Commander Selena Torres, the decorated face of peace missions across continents. Her eyes narrowed, unreadable, as the young tribunal officer read the charges aloud. They said she ordered strikes that never should have happened. Those villages were erased under her command. That beneath her medals, entire families lay buried in silence. But Selena knew the truth was far uglier and far higher up. She was being made the face of a crime she tried to stop. Cameras flashed. Journalists screamed her name. And as guards led her away in chains, one voice echoed in her mind. If you ever challenge the system, it will burn you alive. She had no idea how right he was. Before the cameras, before the accusations, before her name became synonymous with betrayal, Commander Selena Torres was a soldier of principle. Born in a crowded port city where hunger and hope shared the same streets, she grew up believing that justice was not a word, but a duty. Her father was a dock worker, a quiet man who taught her that a person's worth is measured not by power, but by the lives they protect. When he died during a border conflict, an unarmed civilian caught in political fire, Selena was only 14. The day she buried him, she swore she would join the Peace Corps, not to fight, but to defend those without a voice. By 23, she was already leading humanitarian security operations in volatile regions. By 30, she commanded multinational missions under the Global Security Council, earning medals for courage and moral leadership. Reporters called her the Iron Dove, a symbol of peace in uniform, but peace, she learned, was never clean. In war zones, orders came wrapped in politics. Villages labeled as collateral zones, commanders who silenced whistleblowers in the name of national security. She tried to question them, and each time, she was reminded of her place. Soldiers follow orders. Commander, not conscience. Still, she refused to surrender her humanity. She saved civilians where she could, covered for her subordinates when missions went wrong, and wrote anonymous reports exposing Black Ops corruption. Those reports reached no one, or so she thought. Then came Operation Sunfire, a peacekeeping mission in a border nation known only by its code name, Delta Province. Selena's unit was tasked with stabilizing the area after rebel attacks. The orders were simple: secure the villages, protect civilians, neutralize threats. But what she saw when they landed was chaos disguised as control. Armed drones already circling, targets already marked, and her name already signed on the authorization documents she had never seen. That night, under a sky glowing with tracer fire, Selena made a choice. She halted the airstrike. She defied direct orders from Central Command, demanding proof of enemy activity. Her insubordination saved hundreds of lives and ended her career. Within days, she was recalled to headquarters under the charge of operational compromise. Her files were flagged as under review. Her requests for counsel were ignored. The official narrative was rewritten. Commander Torres had authorized an illegal strike. She tried to speak out. Every platform shut her down. Every journalist who called suddenly went silent. Her colleagues avoided her eyes in the hallways. Even her closest aide, Lieutenant Rafi Malik, warned her quietly, "You're being framed, ma'am. Walk away before they erase you." But walking away was never in her nature. When the summons finally came, "Commander Selena Torres, you are to appear before the International Military Tribunal for crimes against humanity." She didn't flinch. She ironed her uniform, tied her hair back, and faced the cameras with the same calm she once brought to battlefields. The world saw a decorated officer accused of atrocities. What they didn't see was the network of powerful men and women pulling strings behind that courtroom, eager to bury a story that could unravel entire governments. As she stepped into the cold tribunal chamber for the first time, her mind flashed back to her father's words. "Justice is not what the powerful say it is, Selena. It's what you fight for when no one stands with you." She felt the weight of that truth in every heartbeat. The prosecution called her a monster. The media painted her as the face of moral hypocrisy. Yet somewhere deep inside, she felt a flicker of defiance, a certainty that her fall was not the end, but the beginning of something larger. Because Selena Torres was not just a soldier on trial. She was the mirror of a system built on silence, a system that thrived on punishing those who dared to see too much. And though the world would soon watch her break, in courtrooms, on news screens, in whispered betrayals, something inside her refused to die. She still believed in the truth, and she still believed that one voice, armed with conviction, could bring an empire to its knees. The gavel struck once, and the sound echoed like a gunshot through the chamber. Case number 1745X, Commander Selena Torres versus the International Security Council. The accused will rise. Selena stood, her uniform crisp, her expression unreadable. Around her, cameras hummed, recording every twitch of emotion. The tribunal hall, a circular glass room in Geneva, looked less like a place of justice and more like a stage built for humiliation. On the far end, the judges sat in elevated seats. 3 generals, 1 civilian lawyer, and the presiding officer, Judge Helena Voss, a woman whose reputation for strict discipline was whispered about in every command center. Commander Torres, Voss began, her tone cold but poised. You stand accused of authorizing unauthorized drone strikes on civilian territories during Operation Sunfire. 42 confirmed deaths, including children. How do you plead? Selena's voice was steady. Not guilty, Your Honor. A murmur ran through the room. The lead prosecutor, Colonel Marcus Velt, rose from his seat, tall, calculated, with the kind of charisma that made the press adore him. He adjusted his tie before addressing the panel. The defense may claim she's innocent. But the data, the signatures, the communications logs, they tell another story. Commander Torres didn't just break orders. She committed an atrocity. He turned toward the large display screen behind him. Satellite footage appeared. Explosions in the night, buildings crumbling, terrified civilians running. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Selena didn't look away. She had seen those same images 100 times, the destruction she fought to prevent. The footage wasn't just evidence. It was a weapon, carefully edited to bury the truth. Commander, Voss said, you will have your turn to speak. For now, the prosecution will continue. Velt smirked slightly. Of course, Your Honor. He clicked the remote again, bringing up an internal memo stamped top secret. The screen zoomed in on a digital signature. Selena Torres. The command order. Verified, time-stamped, authenticated by the system. This signature authorized the airstrike. The crowd gasped again. Selena clenched her fists beneath the table. That's not my order, she said quietly. Velt's smile deepened. And yet it bears your name, Commander. The burden of proof, as they say, rests on you. Selena's defense attorney, Evelyn Chen, a young but fearless human rights lawyer, stood abruptly. Objection, Your Honor. The defense has requested access to the original mission server data that the prosecution continues to withhold. Vos Fronste. Colonel Velt? The data contains classified information, Your Honor, Velt replied smoothly. National security regulations prevent its release. Evelyn shot back. Convenient, isn't it? When the truth hides behind national security, Voss slammed the gavel. Counselor Chen maintained decorum. Selena watched the exchange in silence, her heart pounding with restrained fury. She had known this would happen. The evidence was fabricated, the witnesses coached, the verdict likely written before she ever took the stand. Yet something deeper pushed her to fight, not for freedom, but for truth. During recess, she sat alone in the holding room, staring at the one photo she was allowed to keep. Her father, in his dock uniform, smiling faintly with salt in his hair. She whispered, I'm not done yet, Papa. The door opened. Evelyn entered, closing it softly behind her. They're tightening the leash, Selena, she said. Every request we file gets denied within hours. Velt's team has inside access. I think the tribunal's compromised. Selena nodded slowly. Of course it is. This isn't about justice. It's about narrative control, Evelyn exhaled. Then we change the narrative. How? Selena asked, eyes narrowing. Evelyn sat across from her, lowering her voice. A whistleblower reached out last night. Former data analyst from Central Command. Says he can prove the strike order was uploaded post-mission, after you'd already halted the attack. But, he's gone dark. No contact since Oro 300 hours. Probably scared, or silenced. Selena's gaze hardened. Then we find him. Evelyn hesitated. I can't move outside. Evelyn's eyes widened. Selena, if you even step beyond this facility's perimeter. I won't, Selena interrupted, her tone calm but cold. but I will get the truth in here. Even if it kills me. The next day, testimony began. Prosecution witness Major Daniel Rourke, her former deputy, took the stand. His eyes avoided hers. Major Rourke, Velt began. Were you present during Operation Sunfire? Yes, sir. And did Commander Torres issue the strike authorization? A pause. Rourke's fingers tightened on the rail. Yes, sir. She did. Selina's stomach dropped. Rourke. The same man she had once saved from court-martial for disobeying orders to protect civilians. The betrayal hit like a knife. Evelyn stood. Major, are you aware that Commander Torres halted the strike 3 minutes before execution? Rourke hesitated. She attempted to. Yes. Attempted or succeeded? Evelyn pressed. She gave the abort command. Evelyn leaned forward. And was that command followed? No, Rourke admitted softly. By that point, the drones were already engaged. Then how can you claim she authorized it? Veltrose. Objection! The defense is leading the witness. Voss raised an eyebrow. Sustained. Move on, counselor. Evelyn gritted her teeth and sat down. Selina looked directly at Rourke. Why are you doing this, Daniel? She whispered. He wouldn't meet her gaze. Because I have a family now, he muttered, barely audible. And in that instant, she understood. Fear had replaced loyalty. That evening, the tribunal adjourned early due to technical complications. Selina returned to her quarters, a small guarded room inside the facility. The lights flickered twice, a coded signal she recognized from her intelligence days. She opened her digital pad. An encrypted message appeared. If you want the truth, be ready tomorrow. 0300, Sector 9 archive room. Come alone. No signature. She stared at it for a long moment, then erased it. At 3 a.m., she slipped out of her room, bypassing the surveillance corridor using old field tactics, counting camera rotations, timing the guards' shifts. When she reached Sector 9, the door was already ajar. Inside, faint blue light glowed from a console. A shadow moved. Who's there? Selina whispered. A voice answered, trembling. Name's Dr. Ian Mercer. I worked in command data systems. You don't know me, but I know what they did to you. He slid a drive across the table. Everything's on here. Timestamps, override logs, chain of edits. You didn't sign those orders. They did. The council authorized the strike under your clearance to cover up an arms deal gone wrong. Selina's heart pounded. Why tell me this? Mercer's eyes darted to the door. Because I couldn't live with it anymore. But you have to move fast. They're wiping everything by sunrise. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hall. Mercer froze. They found me. Go! Selina hissed. He shoved the drive into her hand. Get it to the court. The door burst open. 2 guards stormed in. One grabbed Mercer. The other lunged for Selina. She ducked, striking his arm with soldier's precision. The drive slipped from her grip, clattering under the desk. Commander Torres, the guard shouted. You're violating tribunal protocol. Selina raised her hands slowly. Then arrest me again. As they dragged her away, she looked back at Mercer. His terrified eyes met hers for a moment before one of the guards slammed the butt of his rifle into his head. Her scream echoed down the corridor. The next morning, the press headline blared, Commander Torres attempts escape, new proof of guilt. Selina sat in her holding cell, bruised but unbroken. The world thought she was falling apart. In truth, she was awakening. Somewhere in that chaos, the drive still existed. Somewhere, the truth still breathed. And now, Selina Torres vowed, the system that had built its empire on lies was about to face its own trial. The second week of the trial began under an unseasonably cold Geneva sky. Outside the tribunal building, protesters gathered with signs that read, Justice for the innocent. No truth without transparency. And others, more brutal. Torres the butcher. The world was divided. Half saw her as a scapegoat. The other half as a monster. Inside the chamber, Judge Helena Voss adjusted her glasses and announced in her measured tone, Today the defense will present preliminary evidence. If any exists. Selina rose, her posture straight, her bruises carefully hidden beneath her uniform. Evelyn Chen stood beside her, a folder in hand, though both knew it was nearly empty. Your Honor, Evelyn began, the defense submits a request for an emergency data review. We have reason to believe that new evidence, previously suppressed by Central Command, has come to light. Voss interrupted. On what grounds? Evelyn hesitated. A whistleblower from Command Data Systems contacted us before being. Objection. Velt's voice thundered. The defense is relying on unverified rumors. This is a court of law, not a gossip forum. Voss' eyes shifted between them, cold and unmoved. Objection sustained. Counselor Chen, unless you can produce this alleged whistleblower or authenticated data, this line of argument is dismissed. Selina exhaled slowly, holding back her rage. Evelyn whispered, "They've already erased him." But as Voss moved on to the next order of business, Selina noticed a familiar figure in the gallery, Lieutenant Rafi Malik, her old intelligence officer. He sat quietly in civilian clothes, pretending to read something on his tablet. When she glanced at him, he subtly tapped his ring finger against the glass railing 3 times. An old signal from their field days. It meant, "I have it." Later that night, in the prisoner's transport corridor, a guard handed Selina her evening rations. "Message for you," he muttered under his breath. As she looked up, she caught a glimpse of a coded note scrawled beneath the tray. "Meet 2200 hours. East stairwell, level 3, at exactly 22 K." Selina walked into the dim stairwell, heart racing. Rafi stood there, older and wearier than she remembered. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you shouldn't have come." "Neither should you," she replied. "You're risking your life." He gave a half smile. Risk was always part of the job. He reached into his coat and produced a small encrypted chip. Dr. Mercer made backups. Before they caught him, Selina's breath caught. "Is he?" Rafi looked away. "Dead. Official report says suicide in custody. You and I both know what that means." She swallowed hard. "What's on this chip?" "Everything," he said. "The real mission log, the altered timestamps, command signatures. It proves the airstrike was ordered after your abort command." Selina took the chip. "Then we can end this." Rafi shook his head. "Not yet. The tribunal will never admit it into record unless it comes from a verified chain of custody, meaning it has to come from inside command's own servers." "And how do we get that?" she asked. His silence was answer enough. The next morning, Colonel Velt opened the session with his usual arrogance. "The prosecution calls its next witness, Director Anton Krell, head of Global Command Operations." Gasps echoed. Krell was not just any officer. He was the architect of the Global Security Council's intervention programs, a man who answered to presidents and vanished regimes alike. When he walked into the courtroom, it was as if power itself had entered. "Director Krell," Velt began. "You were Commander Torres's superior during Operation Sunfire?" "I was," Krell replied, his voice smooth and precise. "Would you say she had full operational autonomy?" "Within reason," Krell said. "However, her disregard for protocol cost lives. She was insubordinate, reckless, and compromised." Evelyn rose. "Objection, an opinion, not fact." Voss hesitated, then nodded. Sustained. "Director, restrict your testimony to factual observation." Krell gave a polite nod, then turned his gaze directly to Selina. "Facts are simple. She disobeyed direct orders and created chaos on the ground." Selina met his stare. "And who gave those orders, Director?" Voss interjected sharply. "The accused will not address witnesses directly." But Krell smiled. "It's all right, Your Honor. I have nothing to hide." Selina leaned forward slightly. "Then you won't mind if the defense reviews your internal communications." He paused, just a flicker, but she saw it, and that flicker was enough. During recess, Evelyn cornered her in the defense room. "That pause, it means something." Selina nodded. "He's lying." "Krell's fingerprints are on this." Evelyn frowned. "Even if they are, we can't prove it without that chip data you have. The court will never allow it." "Then we don't ask for permission," Selina said. "What are you planning?" Selina looked up, her voice steady. "If they built this court on lies, we'll make the truth its own weapon." That night, Evelyn smuggled a small communication transmitter through her legal access pass. "You've got 6 minutes before the network flags the signal," she whispered as they met in the corridor. Selina inserted the chip and transmitted fragments of the file to an independent media network known for exposing government corruption. The signal was weak but steady, and then blackout. The cell lights died. Sirens blared through the facility. Guards rushed through hallways. Evelyn grabbed Selina's arm. "They traced it." "We have to." Before she could finish, the door burst open. Colonel Velt stood there with 2 military police. "Commander Torres," he said coldly, "you've just committed espionage. You're hereby under arrest again, this time for treason." Selina didn't resist. Treason against what? She asked quietly. A system built on lies. Velt smirked. Against order. Against the only thing keeping the world from falling apart. As they dragged her away, she shouted back to Evelyn, "Get it out there." Evelyn screamed, "Selina!" But the words were swallowed by the sound of boots and alarms. Days passed in silence. She was isolated in a high-security cell, stripped of rank and name. The tribunal postponed hearings, indefinitely pending security review. Then, one morning, the door opened. Judge Voss herself entered, flanked by 2 guards. "You're making quite the spectacle, Commander," she said. Selina didn't move. "The truth has that effect." Voss studied her quietly. "You think exposing classified data makes you a hero? It makes you a liability. The people you're fighting, they don't lose. They erase. Then why are you here?" Selina asked. Voss hesitated. For a moment, something human flickered in her eyes. "Because once, long ago, I believed in the same things you do." "Then help me," Selina said. Voss looked away. "I can't." She turned to leave, but Selina's voice stopped her. "You already are." Voss froze, then walked out without another word. That night, across the world, something remarkable happened. An independent news site, the Sovereign Eye, released a leak. Encrypted data, fragments of Selina's transmission, decoded by anonymous hackers. The files revealed covert arms dealings between the Global Security Council and rebel factions. Operation Sunfire had not been a peacekeeping mission at all, but a cover-up for weapons testing. And the order bearing Selina Torres's signature was confirmed as a digital forgery. The story exploded globally. Headlines screamed, "Command betrayal exposed." Hero or scapegoat? Commander Torres' case shocks the world. Within 24 hours, protests erupted in more than 10 countries. Soldiers refused deployments. Journalists demanded accountability. Inside her cell, Selina heard the distant roar of chants through the stone walls. Her name was no longer cursed. It was being reclaimed. In the tribunal the next morning, chaos reigned. Evelyn was waiting as Selina was escorted in, chains still on her wrists but eyes blazing. Voss banged the gavel. "Order! Order in the chamber!" Velt's face was pale, his confidence gone. "These leaks are fabricated!" he shouted. Evelyn rose, voice clear and fierce. "The world has seen the truth, Colonel." "You can silence a soldier but not a million people." Voss's voice trembled as she read the new directive from the council. "Due to emerging evidence and international pressure, this tribunal is hereby suspended pending a full independent review." Selina exhaled slowly, the faintest smile breaking through her exhaustion. Velt glared at her. "You think this is over? They'll bury you again. Systems like this don't fall, they adapt." Selina met his eyes calmly. "Then I'll adapt faster." As guards moved to escort her away, Evelyn whispered, "We did it." "The truth's out," Selina replied softly. "No, Evelyn. The truth just began to breathe. Now it has to live." Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed. For the first time in weeks, the chants weren't of anger. They were of hope. Justice for Torres. Truth over power. In that storm of voices, Commander Selina Torres lifted her head, eyes toward the gray sky above Geneva. She knew the war wasn't over, but for the first time, it wasn't hers alone to fight. The convoy rattled through the city's armored gates at dawn. A thick fog clung to the tarmac as the military transport carrying Commander Selina Torres rolled toward the tribunal headquarters. She sat in silence, wrists bound in cold steel cuffs, her reflection staring back at her from the bulletproof glass, haunted, hollow but not broken. In the seat opposite her, Captain Omar Diallo, the young African officer assigned as her security escort, avoided eye contact. But something in his tense posture betrayed a secret sympathy. He had read the files, seen the inconsistencies, yet orders were orders. "Commander Torres," he said quietly, finally looking up. "They'll call you a monster today. But not everyone believes what they say." Selina gave a small, humorless smile. "Belief doesn't change facts, Captain." "No," he replied. "But it keeps the truth alive long enough to find air." The words landed heavier than he intended. The tribunal chamber overflowed with international press. Diplomats from 10 nations filled the glass-walled gallery. Every screen across the world was tuned in. The broadcast headline blazed, "Commander Selina Torres, the trial of the century." Behind the bench sat General Victor Strass, the man who had once mentored Selena, now the head of the multinational command. His icy eyes scanned the courtroom as if conducting a mission, not a trial. Selena's lawyer, Aisha Karim, adjusted her notes. A human rights attorney from Nairobi, she was known for turning impossible cases into turning points in history. "Let's begin," Strass declared. The prosecutor rose, voice sharp as steel. "We present evidence that Commander Torres ordered unauthorized airstrikes in the Diran Valley. Over 200 civilian deaths. The footage will show her direct command authorization." The footage began to play, grainy drone footage of explosions lighting up a valley. But Selena's heart clenched at what she saw next. "The timestamp. Pause that," she said suddenly. The prosecutor glared. "You'll have your chance, Commander," but Aisha stood. "Objection. My client has identified a discrepancy." The judge, a weary woman from the UN Security Council, leaned forward. "Proceed." Selena's eyes locked on the screen. That timestamp, 1804 GMT. "I was on a satellite call with command headquarters in Geneva at that moment. My authorization code wasn't active in that window," the court murmured. The prosecutor froze. Strass's jaw tightened. Aisha moved quickly. "We request immediate subpoena of Geneva call records and encrypted command logs." Strass cut in, his tone thunderous. "Denied. Those files are classified under multinational defense protocol." Aisha didn't flinch. "Then this tribunal is not about the truth." "It's about obedience," the room erupted. Cameras zoomed. Strass slammed his gavel. "One more disruption and I'll have you removed," Selena whispered under her breath. The system protects itself. That night in her cell, Selena sat in the dim light, reading through the evidence Aisha had risked her career to obtain. The deeper they went, the more rotten it became. Forged signatures, redacted mission orders, altered satellite timestamps. It was an invisible war fought with paper and pixels. At midnight, the heavy door creaked open. Captain Diallo slipped inside. "I shouldn't be here," he said, his eyes darting around. "But I found something in the mission archives." He handed her a small drive. "These are drone feeds the prosecution didn't include." "Why help me?" she asked. "Because," he whispered, "I was there that night. I saw what really happened. You tried to abort the mission, but the command override came from above your level." Selena's breath caught. "Who signed it?" Diallo hesitated. "Strass." Her pulse hammered. "You're sure?" He nodded. "And the signature trail was wiped, except on this one backup log." "That's what I brought you." Selena clenched her fists. "Then this isn't my trial. It's his cover-up." The next morning the trial resumed. Strass entered with a cold smile, the image of untouchable authority. Selena watched him with quiet fire. Aisha rose to address the court. "Your Honors, new evidence has surfaced that directly challenges the chain of command presented by the prosecution." Strass's expression flickered. "Objection. This evidence was not submitted through the proper, because it was hidden," Aisha shot back. "By your office, General Strass." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Reporters scrambled to capture every word. The judge raised a hand. "Proceed with your submission, Counselor." Aisha inserted the drive. The screen flickered. Drone feed, timestamp 1804 GMT. But instead of showing Selena's voice authorizing the strike, another came through the comms. "Override authorization. Strass. Victor ID code 77X Delta." The chamber went silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. Strass's knuckles whitened. "That's fabricated. Deep fake." But Aisha wasn't done. She projected the encrypted log. "Cross-reference metadata. This command was transmitted through your Geneva terminal." The judge's gavel struck. "We will recess immediately." Strass rose abruptly, veins pulsing in his neck. "This entire tribunal is compromised," he barked before storming out. Selena sat perfectly still. For the first time in months, her heart didn't tremble with fear. It burned with purpose. That night, the world erupted online. Hashtags flooded every platform. Yar justice for Selena, Yar Strass cover-up, Yar truth in uniform. Protests sparked outside embassies. Soldiers began speaking anonymously, confirming years of concealed war crimes and coerced silence. Inside the tribunal, Aisha and Selena prepared for what came next. "They'll try to destroy us," Aisha said, eyes dark with fatigue. "Then let's make sure the world is watching," Selena replied. Outside, Captain Diallo joined the protesters in plain clothes. For every officer they silenced, he told the cameras, today truth speaks louder. The following day, Strass didn't appear in court. Reports claimed he had been reassigned to a classified defense counsel. But whispers of an internal investigation had already begun. When the hearing resumed, the judge addressed the tribunal with solemn gravity. The evidence presented has revealed gross misconduct and falsification of command records. Until further notice, Commander Selena Torres is cleared of all charges pending final review. The tribunal will reconvene under new leadership. Selena closed her eyes. The world blurred. She wasn't free yet, but the system had cracked. As the guards unlocked her cuffs, she looked up at the ceiling lights. Bright, blinding, almost holy, and she whispered, "They wanted silence. We gave them the truth." The room erupted in applause. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon, as if the sky itself had joined the rebellion. The world had changed overnight. What began as a whispered rumor in tribunal corridors had become a global storm. Every major outlet was streaming one headline: General Strass under investigation for war crimes cover-up. Protests filled the streets of New York, Nairobi, London, and Rio. Soldiers who had served under Strass began leaking documents, voice records, and battlefield directives. It was as if the walls of silence were crumbling brick by brick. Inside the tribunal facility, Commander Selena Torres sat quietly in a temporary holding office. She was still technically under military jurisdiction, but the bars around her were no longer iron. They were bureaucracy, waiting to fall. Her attorney, Aisha Karim, entered, her voice low but fierce. "They can't hold you much longer," she said. "Independent oversight teams are demanding Strass's files. Half of the Geneva command resigned this morning." Selena lifted her eyes slowly. "Half isn't enough. The system will just replace them with newer faces and the same old ghosts." Aisha leaned closer. "Then we go after the ghosts." For the first time, Selena allowed herself to smile, tired, but real. That afternoon, as a torrential rain fell over Geneva, the special hearing resumed under new authority. The hall no longer felt like a tribunal. It felt like a reckoning. Reporters filled every seat. A panel of newly appointed justices replaced Strass's loyalists. The room smelled of wet uniforms and nervous sweat. Selena walked in unshackled. The flashbulbs hit her like lightning. The lead justice spoke first, voice solemn but steady. "Commander Torres, this tribunal owes you more than an apology. It owes you the truth." He turned toward the defense table, where a single sealed folder lay. "This document," he continued, "was recovered from General Strass's encrypted archives by internal investigators. It confirms direct authorization of Operation Diran by General Victor Strass and members of the Allied Defense Council. It also contains suppressed field communications, including your attempt to abort the strike." A gasp rippled through the room. Aisha exhaled deeply, her hands trembling. Selena closed her eyes. The images of the destroyed valley flashed through her mind again, not as guilt, but as memory that demanded witness. "Madam Justice," she said quietly, "I don't need forgiveness. I need accountability. Those people deserve that much." The judge nodded. "And they will have it." At that very hour, a coordinated international warrant went out for General Strass. But he had already vanished from Geneva. Satellite images later caught a convoy heading north through the Alps, armored vehicles without insignia. Rumors spread that he was fleeing to a private compound controlled by old military contractors. A shadow operation began to unfold, and Selena, though technically cleared, couldn't sit still. "I know where he's going," she told Aisha. "You're not chasing him," Aisha warned. "That's not your war anymore." Selena looked at her for a long moment. "It was never my war. It was theirs. But this time, I'm ending it." By nightfall, she found herself on a flight headed toward the mountain border, accompanied by Captain Omar Diallo, the one man she trusted now. He had resigned his commission that morning. The snow-capped peaks loomed under moonlight as their vehicle cut through winding paths. "Why help me again?" Selena asked. Diallo smirked. "Because the truth doesn't end in a courtroom. It ends where lies began." Hours later, they reached the compound, a fortress of steel and concrete buried in the ice. They approached through the shadows, their breaths clouding the air. Inside, Strass sat before a fireplace, drink in hand, eyes lost in the flames. When he saw Selina enter, his expression didn't change. "So," he said coldly, "they sent you to finish me." "I came to ask why," Selina said. Her voice was calm, controlled. "You destroyed lives, civilians, soldiers, your own command." "For what?" Strauss chuckled bitterly. "For order. You think the world survives on justice? It survives on control. You were naive enough to think truth could win wars." Selina stepped closer. "No, I just believe people deserve to know who they're really fighting for." Strauss rose slowly, face twisted with rage. "You should have stayed quiet. And you," she whispered, "should have remembered who gave you that uniform." A sudden sound echoed, a helicopter approaching. Within moments, floodlights lit up the compound. Armed units stormed in. Strauss froze as international police surrounded him. Diallo raised his weapon but didn't fire. "It's over, General. Orders from the World Court." Strauss laughed bitterly as they cuffed him. "You think the system changes just because you took me down?" "There'll be another me tomorrow." Selina's eyes hardened. "Then tomorrow, someone else will stand where I stand." When they returned to Geneva, dawn was breaking. Snow melted into glistening rivers beneath the golden sunrise. For the first time in years, Selina felt the air fill her lungs without the weight of command pressing down. Reporters swarmed as she stepped out of the convoy. "Commander Torres!" "How does it feel to be vindicated?" one shouted. She paused, looking into the cameras. "This isn't vindication," she said softly. "It's the beginning. Justice isn't revenge, it's restoration, and that takes all of us." Her words went viral within hours. Across continents, her face filled news feeds, not as the accused, but as the woman who challenged an empire of silence. Weeks later, a global inquiry was announced. The Geneva Accords on Military Transparency, a sweeping reform that forced all multinational forces to publicly record and audit field operations. Her testimony was broadcast to millions. As she spoke before the assembly, she remembered every fallen name, every village, every mistake that birthed this new era. "No medal can erase what happened," she told them, "but truth can stop it from happening again." That's all justice ever was, light after darkness. The chamber stood in silence. Then, one by one, delegates rose in applause. Behind her, Aisha watched with quiet pride. Diallo stood near the exit, hand over his heart. Outside, the world seemed to breathe differently, lighter, slower, human again. That evening, Selina walked along the edge of Lake Geneva. The water shimmered with the reflection of city lights. She removed the last symbol of her rank, the polished insignia, from her shoulder, and dropped it into the lake. It sank quietly, vanishing beneath the surface. She whispered, "For those who couldn't speak, for those who never saw this day." Then she turned and walked away, not as a soldier, not as a fugitive, but as a survivor carrying truth like a torch. Across the world, documentaries, schools, and social movements began invoking her story. Artists painted murals of her face alongside the words, "Truth has no rank." In war rooms once ruled by silence, officers now questioned orders. In classrooms once filled with cynicism, students debated ethics. And in villages once forgotten, people began to believe that even the most powerful can fall. Selina Torres had not only won her freedom, she had ignited a revolution of conscience. Years passed. The wars slowed, not because the world had changed overnight, but because enough hearts had. The story of Commander Selina Torres became more than a trial. It became a mirror. In classrooms from Lagos to London, students studied her case as the turning point in modern military ethics. Her courage was cited in new laws that demanded accountability for every drone strike, every order signed behind sealed doors. And across nations, whistleblowers found their voice again. Selina herself disappeared quietly from public life after the hearings. She refused all political offers, all book deals, all awards. "My story doesn't need my face anymore," she told the press in her final interview. "It needs yours." She moved to the quiet hills of southern Spain, where olive trees leaned gently toward the sea. She lived simply, teaching displaced children how to read and dream again. To them, she was not a soldier. She was a storyteller. Every evening, she gathered them under the twilight sky and spoke of courage not as conquest, but as conscience. "Power," she would say, "isn't measured by how many follow your orders, but by how many are freed by your truth." Those who listened carried her words far and wide. Journalists, Teachers, refugees, and young officers from nations still learning what justice meant. Some called it the Torah's doctrine, others simply called it decency. But Selena never sought titles. Her only reward was silence, the good kind, the kind that follows peace instead of fear. 10 years after the tribunal, a memorial was unveiled in Geneva, a tall glass monument shaped like an open book. Etched across its transparent pages were the names of all who had perished in Diran Valley, and beneath them, one line from Selena's testimony. Truth is not a weapon. It's a bridge between what we were and what we can be. On the day of the dedication, people from 50 nations stood in the rain, candles flickering in their hands. Among them was Aisha Karim, her hair now streaked with silver, and Captain Omar Diallo, wearing civilian clothes but standing with a soldier's quiet pride. When the ceremony ended, Aisha turned to Diallo. She would have hated all this attention. Diallo smiled faintly. She didn't fight for attention. She fought so we'd remember why we serve. A breeze rippled across the lake, scattering the candle flames. For a moment the world felt united, not by borders or flags, but by memory. That evening, as night fell, the monument's lights reflected against the water. Endless, shimmering like the echoes of every truth ever spoken. And somewhere beyond those lights, in a small coastal village, an old woman wrote quietly in her journal. The page read, "There is no greater victory than surviving your own silence. The world will always have those who command and those who obey. But history belongs to those who listen to conscience. If I am remembered, let it be not as a commander who fell, but as a woman who refused to lie. Let every soldier who reads my name remember that loyalty without morality is just fear in uniform. And let truth never again need permission to speak." She closed the notebook and smiled faintly. Outside her window, the waves murmured against the cliffs, whispering her words into eternity. Years later, when she finally passed away, the world mourned as if it had lost a compass. But her story didn't end with her death. It evolved. Filmmakers turned her life into art. Musicians turned her testimony into song. Activists named shelters and schools after her. And young women in uniforms began saying her name when they saluted the flag. In that way, Selena Torres became more than a person. She became a principle. A symbol that truth, though wounded, never dies. Her life had started in obedience and ended in awakening. And that perhaps was the real redemption. Not that she cleared her name, but that she forced humanity to look at itself and choose decency over denial. In the end, her legacy was simple yet unshakable, that justice must never serve power. That silence can kill more than war. That one voice armed with truth can dismantle empires of deceit. And as the monument lights shimmered each night over Lake Geneva, it seemed as if the world itself whispered her final words. They wanted silence. We gave them the truth. Selena's story reminds us that no matter how deep the shadows run, truth always finds a way to rise. She stood alone against the weight of power, and her voice changed the world. How many more voices like hers remain unheard today? How many hearts are still waiting for the courage to speak, to resist, to rebuild? Here on African Black Tales, we tell those stories of strength, sacrifice, and redemption. Stories that cross borders and awaken the conscience of a sleeping world. If Selena's journey moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe, share, and stay with us, because in our next episode, another forgotten soul will rise from silence, carrying the fire of truth forward. Together, we don't just tell stories. We keep the spirit of justice alive.